Well, hello, Josette.
Well, hello, dearest. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Even more wonderful after our conversation with these two amazing humans.
Aren't they the most magical little fairy creatures you've ever met in your whole life?
It was, I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect to be essentially I don't know, I just feel 1,000 times more alive creatively, just having a conversation over Zoom with them,
Yeah, they're the most amazingly inspiring creative people. And I think just to get to listen to some of their wisdom and some of their tips and tricks and just, I don't know, experiences on the planet, being creators. I feel like my heart's been opened a bit and my mind has been played with in the best possible way.
To have the fortitude and just the drive and desire to begin essentially a restaurant. They were doing a pop-up at first. And to do it when they did it and how they did it and how successful it's become. As a person who has done the restaurant thing in the past, I mean, I admire them so much. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's taken so much tenacity and so much courage and, to just, like you say, I feel like it's I said it in the episode, but I feel like it is the ultimate story of turning lemons into lemonade, and I just want you to taste this food. I really do, because you're going to have to come down to LA and have a sample of this. So we are speaking to Celene and Tara Carrara, the founders and owners of Bungkus Bagus LA, which is an Indonesian-style pop-up. They serve Indonesian street food wrapped in banana leaves, fresh banana leaves, and it is quite the most delicious food. And they serve their food out of Smorgasburg, LA, which is downtown Los Angeles. And this conversation is a delight and promises a lot of creative wisdom, so it's worth listening.
So please enjoy.
Enjoy. Well, this is very joyful to have you guys online and introduce you to my dear friend Matt.
Yes, hello.
These are
Hi there. It's so nice to meet you both.
Magical Celene and Tara. This feels really special, actually, because these two women are really my American family, actually. So it feels like, finally, I have family online. It's wonderful. And they have, obviously, Matt, you've been doing your research and seeing all about this, but they have been delighting Los Angeles residents with their delicious food since 2020 with their fantastic Bungkus Bagus pop-up that is now a permanent resident at Smorgasburg in LA, downtown LA. So it's just really delightful to have this conversation with you guys and to do a deep dive in your creative process and find out what makes you tick and how you came up with this genius concept that's now selling out all over the show.
Having us. Yes, thank you. Such an honor.
How was it that you two and Josette met for the first time? What's the backstory there?
Yeah. I mean, I think if I get this right, Josette, my mom was doing a partnership with biotherapeutics, and you were their model, right?
I was their product ambassador, I guess, because I was once upon a time a person who was recognizable somewhere in the world, and so I got this product endorsement. And their mother Tracy is a brilliant esthetician, and I got paired with her, and I guess I went to her for skin treatments every 2 weeks, I think, for 2 years, which was incredible. And so I just quickly became a family member and inherited these two magical creatures in my life. And now I basically just hang around their house all the time and make them feed me delicious food. And that's just, I'm actually wearing a sweater that you guys gave me. Look.
Oh my God. Wow.
They hand me down their clothes even. I really am an adopted African. So it's very joyful.
There's a story behind the the hand-me-downs that we give Josette, which is that we always say it's good for Josette, and that we open a store called It's Good for Josette, where
Oh my God.
they're like all our old like sweaters.
Well, I really love them. Look, I'm sitting in my closet wearing your sweater. It's very delightful.
We have too much stuff for like 3
Good.
minutes.
Nothing goes to waste. That fits our like life motto anyway. So
Yeah.
Nothing goes to waste. Well, so I think part of the reason, obviously, this is the Makers podcast, and we speak about creativity and we talk about people's processes and how they find their way to authentic power. And a lot of the reason I wanted to have you guys on was just because I think I really think you are the embodiment of creative inspiration, as it were. Like, because I look to you and think, you both have such creative lives anyway, just who you are as people. But what you did and how you transitioned from your previous careers to what you're doing now is just such a story of making lemonade out of lemons that life really threw at you, and really what it is to step into your creative power. So I would love to hear a little about that journey and kind of what happened when the pandemic hit and how Bungkus got started.
yeah, I think that a lot of the unfolding of the business has seemed to be like we're working very hard, but a lot of these really epic opportunities just have kind of unfolded in front of us. And I feel like it was a matter of just trying it out and seeing how it went. So the kind of conception of Bungkus was very much that way. Like Tara and I both worked jobs that closed down. The industry shut down as a result of the pandemic. I was working as a doula. So that became impossible to support families in hospitals. Tara was a makeup artist, so same thing on set. And it was really, we took the time off initially to enjoy each other. Tara moved back to Los Angeles in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And it was her fiance Justin, myself, my boyfriend Joe, all hunkering down at our childhood home, kind of puttering around, waiting to see if anything was going to change. And then after like 3 months of like doing a lot of deep cleaning, we were like, uh-oh, we don't have an income anymore. And this is no longer very fun. So I think that there were a couple things happening simultaneously. I was still preparing meals as a doula for a family that were both chefs, and they were very curious about Indonesian food. So there was like that percolating. My mom and grandma also happened to find fresh banana leaves because they were part of the like, let's get all the toilet paper kind of like craze. So like that frenzy led to a market that had fresh banana leaves. So I was like, oh my God, like we could put the Indo food in the fresh leaf. Like that's the closest we've ever been to feeling like we were home in Bali.
Right.
And then Tara's boyfriend, Justin, and then my boyfriend, Joe, were like, why don't you guys just try making food? Like everyone seems to be doing these driveway pop-ups, you know, not a lot of risk. It could just be really fun for a weekend. All your friends will come. So many forces and stars kind of aligned, I feel like, to get us there. And then we did the first one like on a Saturday, and a lot of family and friends came. 2 strangers came, and we met them at the park because we were unsure about how to navigate having, you know, like people that we didn't know at the house. And it was so much fun, and it was so nice because I think everyone so desperately missed getting to be in community after, you know, 4 or 5 months of nothing. So yeah, I felt very, very energized.
Well, it was so amazing. I mean, to be able to be, I mean, I was one of the first people to stand in that line outside in the driveway. And I think well, first of all, the food, Matt, I just wish to God I could send you one of these little banana wrap delights, because honest to goodness, it is the most delicious food I've ever tasted. It's a little spicy. It's a lot flavorsome. It's just, if anyone hasn't gone down to Smorgasburg and had a Bungkus Bagus, you have to do it, because it's an essential. It's required eating as far as I'm concerned. But to stand in that driveway and see how you transform the space, I think it was just such a beautiful expression of all of your creative magic, because it was like they decorated the driveway, they'd made little chalk lines on the floor of like where we should stand, and there was a whole, like, there were beautiful bits of fabric draped everywhere, and as you arrive, the two of them, obviously you can feel the energy coming through the Zoom call. It's just this like magic. You just arrive in this like wonderland of something you've never experienced before, and it was just so incredible to see that you'd taken that little seed of like, oh, we should make food for people. By the way, a lot of people make food for people. They don't do it how you guys do it. Like, there's just so much more to it, you know?
Had either of you cooked, though, you know, commercially or in a restaurant or anything along those lines before this?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Wow.
Eating tables as teenagers, like, we had never worked in a restaurant capacity at all, right? I mean, I'm trying
No,
to think.
I mean, I prepped meals for families, but that's like making dinner for friends, you know? Not the same. Not the same. So there were a lot of, and still are, many learning lessons about how to do this.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very complicated business to run.
Yeah. But I think Tara, I think you'd agree that actually not having had any experience or any sense of how things are supposed to be done ended up really being part of what I think makes us strong as a food business, because we molded the shape of it completely on our own and according to what felt right, all the way, you know, even down to how we chose who we wanted to bring on board, you know, as employees. Like, our employees are craftspeople first. They haven't really worked in kitchens. So I think that that's part of what is shifting a little bit in food right now. And I think that that's really inspiring and cool. And it's good to inject some newness, you know, into the scene. So,
yeah, we weren't like trying to work within an existing structure because we didn't see the structure, because we like didn't go to culinary school and didn't know how to run the back end of a restaurant. So we were just relying on friends of ours or friends of friends who were in the industry, and basically like the kindness of strangers to like help us out. And everyone really showed up and was like excited to share knowledge with us. So we very quickly got this like crash course, and then just sort of invented our own way of doing things that we still are sort of finessing. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that we didn't have like a textbook. So there were no limits to like what we could do and how we could do it. And I think that's a lot of what keeps people from like being daring in any like creative field, is like, oh, well, that's not like the norm, so I shouldn't do that. We didn't even know that we were like breaking a rule per se. So
yeah,
it's so funny because I had a similar thing, like when I started writing screenplays, and a friend of mine read an early draft of a script that I wrote and then gave me a script writing book as a gift, and I was like, oh my god, first of all, I don't know how to take this, but second of all, I was like, if I read this book, I'm probably never going to write another screenplay ever again. And I was like, I will not read that book.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's weird how sometimes with creativity, like I feel like it is just that like letting yourself, I don't know, just be wild and daring and like be prepared to fuck up. I guess it does just help you in the long run, you know?
yes.
And also I love the way, I mean, I wonder if you can speak a bit about like what you're doing as far as creating your company, because now obviously it's grown. You're working out of a professional kitchen. You're hiring a bunch of staff to like work for you, which is just so incredible. I'd love you to speak a bit about what you're doing differently with your staffing and how you're creating the culture of your company.
It's a great question. I have some thoughts. I think that because we started working in this like shared kitchen space a few months ago, we started to understand like how each team has a very particular energy, and it's kind of like whoever's the leader of the team inevitably chooses people in whatever like purposeful or organic way, just draws the right people to their team. And there's no like right or wrong in any of it. Every team is just different. And it's been really fun and very like, I feel very proud of our team, because we're like, number one, everyone is kind of like small. Like we're all like sort of short or like small people. And
that's great.
It requires like brute strength and stamina and like a lot of just like willpower. Like two of our employees are women who are, I think, 5 foot or under.
Oh my God,
And-
that's so great.
But they're peeling 100 pounds of shallots with us. And like, even the managers of the kitchen are like, you guys are hard. Like, you peel so many shallots. And there's, they're both like immigrant women. And I think that they have these like stories of strength and of like reinvention. And we weren't like looking for those people, but I think we called out and then they answered. And it was like this perfection of harmony and culture. And every employee we've had has just had like this childlike purity to them and like joyfulness, and nobody like takes themselves too seriously. And it's just like, they're like our family. And it was, we were really intentional. And then at the same time, it felt like a kind of a magic that just happened that we didn't have control over. So we made sure we put out the right message, and then like the right people came back. And we have so much fun with them. Like, we adore our team, and we all say we love each other. Like, it's just a very sweet kind of bond that we have with them. And they're like our family now. It's really special.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that feels really essential as we look to the future and building the business and scaling is to continue to like pay like a decent and livable wage to our employees, so that the business has to survive with, like these salaries in mind. There's like no going forward in compromising someone's worth on a team. Because this is like a hard city to live in, and it's a hard job to do. So that was something that was important. And I was very inspired by like a handful of other chefs here in LA that have adopted that principle. And these brick and mortars are in a position where now they're able to, offer salaries and health insurance, and they do 401k matching. And that's my biggest goal in the business, is to figure out how to get there, because that's definitely not the model. And that sucks. And it makes it hard to want to stay, like pouring hours and hours and hours of your life into a kitchen where there are no windows if you're not totally fulfilled in a way.
Well, of course. And I think, if you're going to be chopping up 100 pounds of shallots in a week, then it's got to be paying you back in some way. It's got to be worth it. By the way, I would totally stand and chop shallots with you guys, because I feel like Celene spoke about it in the early days when they were still working out of the home in Glendale. She would make everybody cappuccino. She would walk around and say, anyone want a cappuccino? It's like, that's the kind of, it just speaks to the kind of people you are, that I think there's so much care and love in what you're doing that it makes complete sense to me that these are the people that have arrived at your door. I think you're just magnetically attracting them to you, because it's just who you are. You can taste it in the food, not to sound too woo-woo, but like you can. There's open that banana leaf and it's like, oh my God, like it just feels, you can feel the joy. It's completely tangible.
I think that's connected to the tradition of making Indonesian food. I'm sure that there are foods from around the world that are similar to this, but the tradition of making this food, it would normally be like grandmas, aunties, cousins in the kitchen all day long, and they're just hanging out, chopping shallots, like mortar and pestle, grinding spice paste from scratch. So a lot of time passes in the labor of making the food. You literally can't like whip it together, in an hour. So I think that, we come from that tradition of allowing time to be something that you have to like enjoy, because there's no skipping it or trying to optimize it in a way. So then within that, I think that we've found a way to like enjoy standing around our kitchen station, having conversation, listening to interesting music while we're doing the work. And then I think, it translates into the meal. And then the meal, it's so funny because the meal's enjoyed in like a minute and a half.
It really is. I'm always surprised how quickly it goes down. I'm like, no, it's finished. Damn it, I'm going to get another one.
And it's more, we finally get to watch people enjoy the food. In the pop-up, like in the driveway pop-up, they'd take it home. So Tara and I didn't have the experience of watching people eat it. So now at S'morg, we're like watching the picnic tables. And it just kind of vanishes. And now it's just like getting metabolized and it'll be gone tomorrow. And like, that's like the truest metaphor for life
Yeah.
It's kind of cool because you also get to watch them in a way that chefs don't really get to in kitchens, even in open kitchens. They don't get to sit and see people really enjoy the food. So that's really unique as well. Can you tell anyone who, who isn't in LA, who isn't familiar with the current iteration, is it called Smorgasburg?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, in LA. Tell us a little bit about what that is, because I haven't been in LA now since 2019 or so. So I'm out of the loop. Tell me about it a little bit.
Yeah, Smorgasburg was founded in New York as like an outdoor food fair that would happen. I don't know if in the beginning it was weekly, but it became like a seasonal thing. And then it expanded to LA, and I believe there's one in Chicago, and they're going to be opening one in Miami soon, I think. And it's a weekly outdoor, sort of showcase of all of these amazing food businesses and that are all local to the city that it's in. And then at the LA Smorgasburg, they have a center aisle of different makers. So there's like vintage, there's records, there's clothing, there's CBD products, there's candles. So it's this sort of, great, the giant farmer's market sort of style thing, but where you can get hot food ready to go, which I feel like is, there are other places in LA that do that, like the 66 Market, and there's Blossom Market Hall that just opened on the east side. But it's a very special and miraculous thing that happens every Sunday because it takes place in the produce market, like the huge LA produce market. So Smorgasburg, the event, it like pops up and breaks down in the span of 12 hours. Where it goes from nothing to a full city to nothing again. And so it's like everybody's camping for the day, and then we all break up and pack it up and drive home. So that has been kind of an interesting challenge, and also this amazing thing it's very bonding for all of the vendors to be doing that together, because we're all like racing to pack up fastest and, hey, you're not supposed to be done yet. Like we're all suffering together in a way that bonds people very quickly. So it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of hard work, and it's just an incredible kind of pilgrimage that happens every Sunday for people who love food.
It's remarkable, actually,
That's
that all
amazing.
of that's available too. That it's just like you can just arrive and have things from all over the world, cuisines and tastes and delights in one space. And it just speaks to the creative's tenacity to do that. I mean, that is just hard work on your body more than anything else, to have to do all the schlepping and packing and God knows what else.
Yeah.
It's incredible that there is that much love going into presenting and sharing food. I mean, it's amazing.
And the quality of food at Smorg is so incredible. I haven't tried a single thing there that isn't incredible. And I think that is a testament to the organizers of Smorgasburg in like how they vet the vendors and are really intentional about who they bring in. And I think they also are like, intentional about the kinds of vendors and like the sort of personalities that they want to bring in. Because it's like a party, like everybody is so fun and vibrant and driven, and it's a really like inspiring place to be. And I mean, our neighbors are just incredible people, so we
Does
really
it make
love
you want to come down to Los Angeles, Matt, for a trip?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fascinated with this because it's I spent about 15 years in the restaurant business, because as a person who is bouncing, trying to do the acting thing for so long, it's just your natural sort of place to be.
Yeah.
And it spanned so many different iterations of the restaurant world. And so, thankfully, I was able to kind of do this full time now, or my current business. So I have so much love and respect for anyone who undertakes, food service of any sort, let alone, you didn't know what you didn't know going into it. And that blows my mind that you have like grown it to this point without having had the structure in place. I think too, it can be harmful to have all the structure in place, because when you see, I think people get into the restaurant business for a lot of different reasons, and especially cooks saying, I want to climb the ladder and eventually work at, whatever restaurant with whatever chef or something like that. but yours grew out of just love and people loving your food. And now here you are wanting to change the model, which I think is an amazing idea. I think the model's been broken for a long, long time, and 2020 certainly showed us that.
Yeah.
And so where we're at now is amazing. Do you have thoughts on doing a brick and mortar at some point in time as well?
Yes.
Celine says it through through a half exhausted, like, I did smorgasbord yesterday. Like,
No,
don't make
no.
me think
Yeah,
about
right.
that now.
I think, I think it's kind of wild to, I mean, we're like a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. Is that right, Tara? A year and a half into this?
It'll be 2 years in July.
In July.
Good
So
God.
like, I think it's kind of crazy that we've like made it this far. I think because we're so busy still doing a lot of the like cooking ourselves, it makes kind of building the brand and like pushing the vision forward. We just don't always have like time every week to sit and like dream. But we had a week off last week. And so I feel like I got flooded with all of these ideas about where I wanted to go with it and what we wanted to do. And I think having S'more has been super fun, but it also shows us that we really love getting to craft like end to end the environment for our customers, because that's, you know, like sticking to the true like Bali, like warung experience was what we set out to do in the first place. And so to get ourselves in a position where we can do that at a brick and mortar would be like just so cool.
Yeah. Oh my God, of course. Well, what you did just with that driveway in Glendale, I mean, you're just imagining what you'd be able to do with a
You can do with a
space.
strip of concrete. I can't imagine what it would be like to have like walls and maybe a staircase.
We hope you love listening to the Makers podcast as much as we love making it.
And if you would like to show your support and keep us going and keep us making magic and bringing these gorgeous creative conversations to you, perhaps you'd consider becoming a contributor to the Makers podcast. If you'd like to do so,
Visit anchor.fm/themakers/support to get started. And now, back to the show.
well, this is what's so incredible, Matt, you don't know about Celene and Tara, is that just they live, like, their life is the embodiment of creativity. Like, it's just being around them, you feel creatively inspired. I mean, I've had so many dinner parties just at your house where, you know, the two of you have just, the way you lay the table, the way you know, we've had dinners and then sojourned into the living room where they both pick up instruments and start singing Joni Mitchell songs. And I'm like, holy fuck, like, where am I? I think I've died and gone to heaven. But like, and then Celene will just pick up a sketch pad and like draw the most beautiful thing you've ever seen with like gold leaf filigree. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand where all of this comes from. It's like you're both this kind of, these bottomless wells of creativity. And I think that to have a blank space that you could just kind of throw all of this amazingness at would just be the most spectacular thing ever. I mean, people wouldn't know what hit them, I think, walking into a space like that.
Yeah.
It's
I think
remarkable.
Creativity and artistry too are essential parts of life on Bali. Like, it's integral to the culture to be an artist or a maker in some capacity.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that we are products of having grown up in community with people that were carving like beautiful goddesses and gods out of stone with like, you know, like an old school chisel, right? So I think that the pursuit of making your world and your life and like everything you do as beautiful as it can be is just part of like how we were raised. So if you have the opportunity to like decorate a little corner and make it enjoyable and blissful, like, go for it. Or if you feel like your gorgeous tree in your backyard like should have a skirt to celebrate how beautiful it is, like, put a sarong on it and let's bless it and thank it for like giving us all the shade, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think you'd say the same thing too, Tara. Like,
yeah, there's like, yeah, Bali is all about spirituality, reverence, beauty, like this, like the senses, you know, and of course it has its like dark side, but
sure.
I think because of their awareness and also kind of respect for darkness, they have the opposite side that is expressed so like sort of jubilantly every day. The gratitude for life and like the acknowledgement of what life is and how lucky we are to be alive and all of those things. And I mean, our parents also, before they got to Bali, had a very strong spiritual sort of like sentiment to both of them. And they were definitely like sort of blazing a trail in their families as artists and as spiritual people. And we grew up with an artist in our house, like our stepdad is an artist. And it was like our grandma was an interior designer. It was like from every place we were shown that like art is a way of life and you just don't question it. And that's just what you do. So I think in a way there was no other option. It was just like to rebel for us would be to do something that had nothing to do with art. But I don't know if either of us could ever really do that.
No, I don't think so.
It would be so uncomfortable. So it's almost like I take it for granted. I don't think about it every day, but it's definitely given us a really beautiful existence to like just get to be a part of that and to bring it into our homes now and, you know.
Well, and to share it with your communities, because I think that's the other thing is you're having an impact really. I mean, you've had a huge impact on my life, you know, because just looking in and seeing how you live, like it's definitely inspired me to like tap into my creativity more for sure. I mean, I can say that without a doubt. You know, there's a way that I go about things really is just a complete like steal from you guys. Hands down, I'm just gonna admit it. I'm interested to know also, like, so you talk about that upbringing in Bali, and it's so amazing that you had that kind of grounding. Do you think that was a part of what helped you do this transition? So like what seemed effortlessly, it felt like you guys were so open to just be like, cool, we'll just try this thing and we'll put down our careers for a moment and do this other thing. Do you think that that's what made that transition like simpler, or I don't know, how did you achieve that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on for both of us, and like the sort of success, quote unquote, of what we've done has to do with our sisterhood and the way that we also fill in each other in this really beautiful dance, and our strengths and our perspectives. And Celene and I just, as siblings, I think with a lot of sibling pairs, just have this really like whole, like there's a wholeness when we're whole as ourselves, but then when we get together, there's like this extra wholeness that allows for us to fill in every kind of need for the business that we do. But I think also, where we come from and how we were raised has a lot to do with, I think, just the fearlessness that we set forth with Bungkus with. It was just like, I mean, it was also just like the pandemic times. It was like, well, like, let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. You know, it was just kind of like, pardon my French, but like a fuck it moment where we were like, well, we'll see, and we weren't investing that much into it. It wasn't like we had overhead. We were like doing it from our house. So
right.
I think it was the perfect storm to just like try something new. And there was like no ceiling other than what we could physically do in a day, which was a ceiling, but we learned was like a pretty high one. So we were like, okay, we are strong. We have stamina. We can do this. We can figure it out. And our adaptability and just sort of like our plasticness with everything has helped us just continue to adapt to every challenge and every situation. And we lean on each other so much to get us through everything. And we know other, there are cooks in our kitchen who run their businesses essentially by themselves. And wow. I'm just like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how I would do this without Celene, or if I would really want to do it without her. Cause it's so much about like us as sisters, our family, our culture, where we come from is so woven into our mission that it's inextricable. So.
And running a business, even though we're like professional and using quotes on that, we're also
you are.
we're like human,
very much so.
Human and like learning everything and doing everything in real time. So there are moments where you just have to like freak out, do a weird dance, sing a weird song, you know, kind of like, and to have a business partner where you can express all of that without judgment or any shame, like allows you to kind of like, you know, shake it off, like dogs shake off all their stress. Like you have a chance to do it and then just get back to work, because it's not, nothing is the end of the world. But when you're, you know, when you're like running a business and now it's your only source of income, you know, little snafus can feel really big. So it's good to have a mirror that helps keep it all in check. And, you know, so.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that
it does. It does. Because I think when you describe it as like that sort of plasticness, you know, that ability to sort of be mold and shift. I mean, it's just I'm so fascinated by it, because I think I'm a person who was so attached at one stage to a specific identity and so identified with a thing that I did in such a kind of obsessive way. I'm always so fascinated by people who are able to just go, whoop, okay, put that down. Now I'm this thing, you know, and I find it's so inspiring, because we are all more than one thing. I mean, I keep saying this. I think I've said this in every podcast. We're more than one thing, and we should be, and we should encourage it. But I think when I see somebody do it so effortlessly, I'm just, it amazes me. And I'm like, how do you do that? You know, it's really fantastic.
I think too, like people that work in food have a certain kind of like grit and, like I think everyone that we've met is like willing to just like get dirty and figure out, like problem solve whatever the problem is. And there's not a ton of ego that we've encountered. So it makes it really easy to feel seen and to feel like there's a sense of belonging. And that happened, I think our like very first phone call that we had with a handful of people that worked in food, they were like down to help us immediately. We didn't have to pay them for consulting or whatever. It was like, no, like here, like we get our supplies at this place. Here's the contact, call them, they'll set you up. So, I mean, that was so wonderful. And that hadn't really happened for me in other industries that I've worked in. So that made it like enjoyable to be like, all right, I'm down, you know?
Yeah, that's remarkable. Yeah, and I think it also just speaks to the food industry of like, we were talking about this the other day, Matt and I, about this notion of kind of competition and how we don't really believe there is anything there's no one really to compete against for real. We believe in this kind of infinite universe and that there's space for everybody. So it kind of speaks volumes to the food industry, you know, being like, well, yeah, because one night, by the way, someone's going to eat their food and then the next night they're going to want to eat your food. So there is space for everybody. It's wonderful that feeling is there and that kind of community exists. Maybe we should all just stop making food.
Well, it's a real spiritual pursuit. It's something that I discovered in working in the restaurant business, starting at a place like my first job was this place called Ruby Tuesday. You know, it's like a TGI Fridays type spot. And then all the way up to the last one, which was, you know, made some of the best food that I'd ever had. But it's because every farm was where the animals were very happy. All the vegetables were taken care of. Some of them were sung to. It was like a real thing. And so you're really imparting this spiritual gift to people, you know, when you're making food with so much love. And, you know, it's funny, you were saying how all the people that work with you now are so resilient and so but also they're craftsmen. There's an old quote, I think it might be from an LA chef, I forget who it is now though, said something along the lines of, a chef looks at a bag of shallots, and he actually used shallots as an example, and he looks at that bag and says he's excited because he gets to peel all those shallots. There is an excitement to the prep, to the love, to the spending the time with your whole crew, listening to music, whatever it is, that I think a lot of industries don't have. And so that's fun that you guys have that culture in place already. That's amazing.
To get really philosophical for a second, I remember learning about a concept from like Karl Marx like 10 years ago, which was, I think he called it like the alienation from labor that was happening in the industrialized society, where people were being alienated from the like hands-on creation of their world. So it was like, you no longer grew your food, harvested it, cooked it, and ate it. It was like everything was like, it was that sort of thing of like touch of a button, you know, that we're moving toward more and more every day. And obviously, like when you cook something, it's like the most grounding thing. I mean, when you grow something, that's like the most grounding thing. And we had, ironically, we had a little garden before we started Bungkus because we were so bored and we had so much time. And Celene and Joe had this like vision of a bountiful garden. So we worked on that for a while. But
it was a really lovely garden.
It was
Is it?
It was lovely to visit that
like,
garden.
Yeah, there were like huge yields. Like we had all this food. It was like this incredible thing. And our dad is really into gardening. So it was just this sort of cool experiment to see how much we could do, you know, sort of led by Celene and Joe. But I think that in making, you are just connected to something really elemental and really important. And that when you lose that, you lose a certain like root or something, like you kind of get untethered a little bit. And Celene and I have never stopped making, like Josette said, we can't help ourselves. But there is something about, I think, also the like ephemeral nature of food, like Celene said, where like the joke is that we make poop for a living. It's like we feed people and it's gone. It's like that is what we're doing, is like we're just making a bunch of poop. And that is it's a humbling thing, and it's like an incredible thing. And it's actually really cool because then we're not so attached to, because as like an artist, I've been so attached to my work where I'm like so precious about it. And this way I can't be, like, the only thing I have is a photo and like a feeling and someone else's words to like describe what they experienced, and that's it. So I can just be a little less I think it does like take the ego part out of it, where it's like it's not all about me, and like what a relief that it's not all about me.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Be more of like service in a way that's more immediate. It's very valuable.
Yeah. And the way that a person experiences your food is going to change from person to person. And especially if you give it to someone who is from Bali or someone who's never had that food before, their experience is going to be so different. We could have a whole entire podcast just talking about our thoughts on where food is at now, you know, where it came from, I think, because you really struck a chord with me when you mentioned that, because it's something that I just has always, you know, in the 50s to 70s, when everything turned into cans and fast packaging and everything in the world we live in now, is really fascinating, because what we're discovering is that when food is taken care of and it's nurtured in a way that it hasn't been for so long, it tastes completely different. People's minds are blown that there are different colors of tomatoes and bananas and this and that, you know, sort of thing, because we're just so far removed from it in our current, you know, culture. So I need to eat your food, I guess. So I got to get out there.
You need to come down to LA.
Yeah, I need to eat your poop.
Wow, that went dark real quick.
Both potty jokes over here.
Yeah,
They do have an incredible sambal. Is it sambal goreng? Am I going to say? Am I saying that right? Sambal goreng. Oh my god! If you like spicy,
we will
it
ship
is. They can ship it to you, and actually we should do that right after this podcast.
Yeah.
If you like spicy stuff, because it's basically the shallots and the chilies and all their incredible flavor in this tiny little jar, and you can sprinkle it on your eggs, which is delicious. I've put it on eggs. You can sprinkle it on toast. You can put it on your curry. You can put it wherever you want. It's freaking delicious. So that is the one thing you can have access to, I guess, around the country.
Wonderful.
Until they go really big and start shipping it back to South Africa. Then I start sending it as Christmas gifts to all my family back home.
It's the pipeline for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you have that. But yeah, so, I would like to ask because we were talking about that idea of making, and then that idea of, you were saying, Tara, of how it's like that thing is now outside of you. It's not you anymore. I'm interested to know, because we just are obsessed with this, Matt and I keep asking people this, because of course it's the Makers Podcast. I want to know where you think
it's in the name,
creativity comes from, where you feel like that, where that, you know, what you believe about your creativity and your creative process.
Did you say where the creativity comes from?
Yeah, like where do you think that sort of divine inspiration comes from, or that those nudges to make or create actually originate?
Wow, that's like my big question. What is God and what is creativity?
Mine too. That's why I'm asking, so you can tell me.
I'm like, Celene, are you just thinking of John O'Donohue right now?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. Yeah, there's, I don't know if you guys have given this a listen. It's new to me. He's an Irish poet named John O'Donoghue, and he did a podcast like in 2008, but the podcast is On Being, and he is like one of the most magnificent people I've ever heard speak. And he talks about creativity being accessible for all of us, because like the sheer act of living and engaging in your life is a creative act. Like you wake up every day and you have no idea what's going to happen, and you just navigate it and make choices. And so I really have been inspired by that idea in the last, like, since I've listened to his words, because it really takes the pressure off of having to kind of like conceive and think so much about what making anything is. I think especially with regard to Bungkus, I feel like that idea, like Balinese food has wanted to come here for a long time. Like we're not like the channelers of it in any kind of like divine way. I think that it like was swirling out there somewhere, and then it was just like it happened to be us in this iteration, and hopefully there will be like many, many, many other people that do it too. Here in this city. So like that idea about creativity, I bring from, I think Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that when she thinks about like the writing of her books, and how some ideas just like flow out in the ether and then they arrive, and you either like seize it and do it, or maybe it bounces off with somebody else. Like, I like that idea too.
We were just talking about that exact thing
Oh,
yesterday
yeah.
about that. Yeah. Accepting the idea, and if you don't accept it, it's probably going to travel to someone else. Yeah.
To somebody else. I mean, I think like, again, that to me and like my like personal, it like helps relieve the pressure. So that my inclination is to like, okay, I have this idea, I need to execute and perform, and it has to like be very linear in this way. Because that's just my mind like messing it all up for me. So
that's that Capricorn brain, darling. I have it too. It's such a curse sometimes.
So helping, I'm like, I think of like John's words, and I'm like, all right, like it is unfolding. Every small act is a move in some direction. Like I can trust that. I believe that. All right.
That's beautiful.
Like, it's not all up to me all the time, and everyone else around me is doing it. So, okay, I can be at peace with that.
It's a lot kinder. It feels like a much kinder way to sort of hold your journey through the planet. It feels like, it's a lot. It's soothing almost. I'm like, let me listen to John and take something on.
You guys have to listen to this. It is
like stirring. You're like, oh my God.
like the closest I've been to reading like what feels like my like holy scripture. Would you say, you know what I mean, Tara?
Yeah, it feels like like the manifesto of our family and like the way we were raised, just put very eloquently and in like a real poet's point of view. So I had a thought that I wanted to contribute to the creativity conversation, which is like, and something that John talked about too, and that I've been thinking about, because I have been obsessed with Brene Brown's values exercise. I mean, Celene and I are both obsessed with Brene Brown, but we've been wanting to do the values exercise for the business, which is essentially choosing only 2 values, which normally we think of values as like, what are your 5? But it's like 1 or 2 is Brene's argument, because everything else can ladder up underneath those 1 or 2 core things. And in doing my personal values last week,
what did you pick? I want to know.
Yeah. The first one that came to me was love. I was like, love is everything. No question about it. And that's been, I think, my philosophy for a long time now. And the kind of coming to I had in my like mid-20s, where I was like, that's the thing I can lean on always. And like, and Brene's philosophy too is like, values are what you lean on to get you through hard times. They're not who you aspire to be. It's who you already are and who you've always been.
Yeah.
So love was like my number 1, no question. And then I was trying to kind of put into words what I thought the second one was. And what I kind of landed on was like mystic spirituality, or like mystical magic mystery something. And when I listened to John speaking about that, it like came into really clear focus, because he talks about how like strange humans are and how we take for granted how strange we are. Like, he's like, it's so strange that, you know, tomorrow's gone and we never question where it went. It's just gone, you know, and like nobody ever asks.
Oh my God, I love this guy
Like,
already.
where did tomorrow get to? You know, and like he's got this like childlike wonder about the mysteries of the world. And I think for me, creativity is like this attempt to digest and explain and express the mystery. And to me, the mystery is like so comforting, because it's the surrender, and it's kind of all those things we've been talking about, like in this perfect package of like, I don't know, and that's okay. And actually, I like, me not knowing is the best part of this, because then I get to like discover, and I get to keep, you know, discovering every day. And I don't know, it's this just wonderful release of all of the trying and just getting to be in the being. And I think that's why my favorite part of what we do is like being in the kitchen with our employees, because I just get to like sit there and be like, this is crazy, like we're making our poop and we're like all friends. And like, you know, a year ago we didn't even know each other existed, and Dewey Nisa was born in Jakarta, you know, 3 years before I was born in Bali, and we were a couple miles apart. Like all you know, it's like this crazy miracle that is just totally random and also totally planned and cool. So I think Bungkus is this like awesome way that we get to play and be a part of the grand experiment and just like get to like, you know, live our life through something that we like luckily enjoy doing, you know, for the most part.
That's beautiful.
I love that phrase, the grand experiment. I use it all the time in reference to the future, you know, that I want to create for myself. I'm in a big experiment with destiny right now, because this is what I want, and I'm going for it, because there's no reason not to, you know?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. And the pressure is certainly off when you I believe in quantum leaps, certainly, but I also believe in one day at a time and the next logical step, and just putting your head down and doing it for the love of it and see what happens on the other side of it. When you detach yourself from the how and just focus on the why, things get really, really good, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it gets a lot simpler.
Yeah. Yeah.
As everything. I had one more John thought that I wanted to share.
Oh my gosh, please.
He was talking about change and how, you know, change is happening all the time, and that certain changes sometimes come about really suddenly for us, and we're like, whoa, where did that come from? But what he says is that he believes secret work has been done within us of which we had no inkling for long periods of time. And I think that Bungkus is like
beautiful.
That kind of becoming for Celene and me, where it was like everything in our lives led up perfectly. Like Celene being a doula has everything to do with the success of Bungkus, and me being this like makeup artist / like, I don't know, like sort of connector of humans thing that I was doing has everything to do with the success of Bungkus, of like seeing people. And it's a part of who we are in such a way that, it feels like a destiny thing where it's like, we almost have no control over it. We're just kind of like letting the script unfold, kind of how it was written for us. And
it's so beautiful to think of it in that way, and it's so obvious from the outside too. Like, I think that's what's so beautiful about him, that idea of it growing inside of you, that you had no knowledge of it, but like all of us did. That's what's so amazing. Like, it's always so obvious to everybody outside of you. I think, you know, being in your home and you know, Celene would just cook for a group of people, and it would be the most delightful experience I'd had for the last 6 months. You know, I mean, it really has been some of the great highlights of my life has been having meals with the two of you. And for the longest time, I would stand in that kitchen and stare at Celene as she was like searing a beautiful steak or doing something exceptional. And I'm just like, why the fuck are you not doing this for other people?
Yeah.
You know, and I said that to her so many goddamn times, but I think everybody did, right? Like, everyone was saying this to you all along, and yeah, it's so amazing how it's so obvious, and yet to us it's not until it happens, and then it happens exponentially. I mean, the rapidness that this happened in your lives is it's exceptional, which just to me is like it's completely meant. It's divine timing, and of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, magic. It's the
The
magic of
things
our
that
lives.
emerged from the perception of 2020 and beyond a little bit. I think it just pushed some of our dreams or things that we wanted to do or things that we didn't even know were inside of us. It advanced them 5, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever it was, where we got a chance to explore it and get there. Because if that hadn't happened, you might not have moved back to LA and you might not have started all of this. And so it's just all of those sorts of things. And it is so funny, like what you're saying with John O'Donohue. We don't always ask, where did yesterday go? What happened to it? What that whole entire year, we look back because we're so focused sometimes on the present, which is a beautiful thing too. But to think, man, what would have happened if things had been different or whatever experiences? My first thought too was, so I did obviously a little bit of research on you both before we talked, but Celene, your job as a doula, obviously because of the events of the year kind of went away. But boy, would you be busy now. All those pandemic babies that were born or that were made during 2020. Yeah.
So
Is it something that is it even in your view anymore? Or is that a past life at this point?
No, I'm still tethered to it. I can't really like totally unplug. That would feel wrong. Because the calling to do that kind of service is still very, like, it was very strong to begin with, and it still feels important. I think right now what I'm able to manage, I do postpartum body work, and it's a Malaysian tradition of binding the abdomen and womb space afterwards. So I just came from a session actually. And it feels really important to kind of get to like step into a different role, because I don't know, I kind of like go through the door and I'm with mom and baby, and like there's no more me, and I'm just like putting my hands on someone, and like I don't know, I don't really like think anymore when I'm doing it, and I crave those windows of time. Because it feels nourishing then to like leave the door and step back into my life. And I feel like doing birth work is an important way for me to maintain perspective on like the big things of life, and like what giant transitions and identity shape-shifting looks like.
Yeah.
So that I don't I can get easily overwhelmed, I think. So birth work has helped me kind of keep all of that in good perspective and feel a bit more like a bird on it all than like being like really like hunkered down,
It's so remarkable that it's like the act of service and holding space for another woman through those transitions is what's grounding you. It's incredible because, I think people always think of service as giving, and having and taking energy from you, and yet this is kind of offering you. It's like an exchange. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty. I think it's helped me actually rebuild a lot of trust in kind of like what happens when you're just quiet with someone else and you can be together with a person in a vulnerable place. Because a lot happens when like they're not saying anything at all. So, I'm definitely, my brain is like pretty active and talks very loudly a lot. So my spirit, I think, appreciates these moments of rest where I can really be like seen and then just like be a witness to somebody else and whatever they're going through, so.
It's also amazing because, Matt, what you don't know is like Tara was born in Bali, and Celene was actually present at her birth. So I think this is it's so in you, this witnessing of birth and this kind of, I don't know, welcoming babies into the world that, it would be a difficult one to put down, I feel like, to just let that identity go and sort of put it to rest. She's going to be running a huge, restaurant somewhere in Los Angeles and then popping off to go and help women through these transitions.
Yeah, I mean, there was one great, like, when I still was taking on birth clients, obviously, like, labor is unpredictable. And so it was a Friday. We had a Saturday pop-up happening in the driveway. And my birthing family texted me. They were like, we think labor's starting. And I was like, all right, well, it's like 2:00 in the afternoon. I've got like a lot of banana leaves left to cut, but like, whatever, like, here we go. And you know, you just like have to surrender to the divine timing of it all and trust that it's going to be okay. And sure enough, baby arrived at like 8:30 at night, and I got home at 9:30, and I got back to work, and it was okay.
Wow.
Superwoman.
Yeah.
Celene, you're remarkable.
Yeah, there's like all the crazy things too. Like, I think like even when we're at Smorgasburg and the work is hard or whatever, I'm like, they're like, I think the average is that at any given moment, there are like 200 birthing women, like birthing people out there in the world. So I think about that often when I'm in moments of overwhelm, because I'm like, oh, like there's this, you know, current of people that are doing something that is just like otherworldly, right? So I can certainly load the car. Like,
Right.
Oh my God. That's
know.
so great. Yeah, what a way to keep things into perspective. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Like comparing your experience to real like labor is something I'm not brave enough to ever try and attempt, quite frankly, in my lifetime. I will do it again when I come back.
There
in
you
the next
go.
incarnation. Or not.
Now, Tara, do you still work in any, or what did you do as a makeup artist in New York? Was it on set type of work, or?
Honestly, I did a little bit of everything. Like I was just freelancing and I mean, in the beginning, just like doing whatever came my way, as I think most creatives do in the beginning. But when I got to be more selective, I would say my favorite kind of work was like, being on set, doing, I really love doing like the MFA Columbia student films, because students are like so passionate and like so earnest with their work. And they were always finding like the most interesting talent, because there were people who were willing to do a project for, you know, not a boatload of money. So I think that the sort of scrappiness and like the real passion, as you both know, when you're like, you know, doing something like a smaller project is just like really incredible. So I love being on set. Being on set is so much like working in a kitchen. It's just like long hours that are exhausting, but really fulfilling too. And connections you make with people are really incredible. And it's just kind of like being at camp where you're all kind of suffering together, but you're super bonded through that. And then I really love doing creative makeup, because on-set makeup was usually like just normal beauty. And then I loved doing like one-on-one creative makeup work. So I had a handful of clients who would hire me for parties or for personal shoots, or if they were going to an event. And it was really this beautiful creation of like an identity for them, of like who they wanted to present as that day or night. And that is a very intimate space that, you know, requires a lot of trust. So it was like, I felt really honored to like be chosen to like sort of like have those people in my hands, I guess you could say. Especially being so young. Like when I started in New York, I was 26, 27. So I still felt like very young to be working. And I tended to attract clients who were like in their 40s or older. So it was really interesting, like being welcomed into a home with someone and get to have this really like intimate exchange with them about their identity and help them feel more beautiful or whatever they wanted to feel that day. So I would say like the creative makeup was my like real true calling, and something that I like experimented a lot when I was in art school. And just something, and I still haven't let it go. Like I love makeup. I love adornment. I think it's just one of the most fascinating things. I love subculture, and how people choose to present themselves is like an endlessly fascinating thing for me to study. So I don't think, in the same way, I don't think I'll ever let that go. And it was a wild ride. Like, it was definitely,
I believe it.
Yeah, it was really hard at times and really exhausting at times. And then it was also just like so invigorating. And I made really great friends through doing makeup, because I think because of the extreme vulnerability of everybody that's involved in those processes. Is like, you know, everybody's like, oh, I have a pimple. And I'm like, girl, we all have pimples. Like, don't worry about it. Or they're like, oh, like, don't pay attention to this part of me. And I'm like, you have no idea, like, how you are the same as everyone else. And like, everybody's worried about it. And like, everyone is so fine and like so beautiful as they are. And it's like, let's just start from zero and like, you know, pretend like we don't worry about those things because they don't matter. So it was the massage at the beginning was always the best, because it was like I was taking a child's face in my hand, and everyone just like takes a breath and like sits back and closes their eyes, and I'm like, okay, now we can begin.
It's such a remarkable thing. I mean, I know with the years I was working on set, you know, as an actor in South Africa and even here, it's like that relationship with your makeup artist is so sacred, because that's your first person that sees you, that, you know, you'll talk about the stuff that you're concerned about, or the things that are freaking you out, or any stress that's happening. Like, you kind of, I mean, you guys are way more than just makeup artists, you know. There's like a whole psychotherapy aspect and kind of divine mothering that has to happen in that chair, you know. And it is like, they're the, you know, your makeup artist is the last person that's sort of touching your face in very vulnerable moments when you're kind of exposed emotionally, and you know, it's like, it is such a beautiful relationship, actually. And it takes a very special person, I think, to be able to do what you do, Tara, like, and, you know, to create that safety for actors and for people too in general. It's amazing. It's so cool.
Very like raw space to be in, which I love. It's like, that's my favorite thing, is like, I mean, I feel like Celene and I, it's so funny, like our work is so similar in that way, where it was like, obviously very different situations, but we were, you know, these sort of like witnesses and space holders for people in really vulnerable, raw states where the stakes are high and, you know, there's a lot on the line. And with a performer, you know, everybody's kind of just like, I can just like see they're like going through the every question in their mind. And a lot of times it's like, we don't have to say anything. And I just let them have the space that they need in that moment, just to kind of like be in the zone. And you know, I wouldn't play music. I would just like let them just kind of try to read whatever they needed in the moment, and like try to be that for them, so that they could just do what they needed to do. Because I admire actors so much. It's like, I think one of the hardest jobs in the world. It's like so
Really
vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's just, you're like completely naked and the camera's like right here, and it's just so intense. Like, everything about it is so intense. So to get to provide comfort in that moment is a real honor for people.
That's why the relationship that, you know, when I was an actor, same thing, the relationship was always so wonderful with the makeup artist. But as a director, it was one of my favorite relationships, because you are the liaison between me and the actor in some of those really, really vulnerable moments. If it's an emotional scene, you got to fly in and touch up before the next take and things like that. And so there was always this comforting, very motherly sort of person there to tend to their face, because it doesn't feel awful. It feels wonderful to have someone come in those vulnerable moments and do something here and there. Even if there's nothing to do, I would find my makeup artist would just do something just to get a little bit of that.
At you, or like look into your eyes and be like, you're doing great.
You're doing great. Yeah.
I love it.
It's so amazing how we all recognize it as divine, as like mothering, as this kind of divine holding, which I think is so important for creativity. It's so magical, and it's so interesting that you both have it in bucket loads. And I think in some ways that ability to mother, or to be that divine sort of nurturer, is what's created such success for you two. I really believe it, because I think that energy that you have is what's bringing forth this beautiful creation into the world. It makes so much sense when I look at it as like a case study, you know, from the outside. So it's beautiful. It really
That's
is.
funny, because I jokingly like will refer to our employees as like kids sometimes. I'm like, which is hilarious, because I think one of them is older than me, and then, you know, like, they're all adults in their own right. But I'm always like, you know, like, all right, kids, or like, all right, sprouts, or like whatever. And it's just really, it's sort of a joke, but at the same time, I think we all mother each other It's not just Celene and me. It's like we all take care of each other, and everyone has a really like unique way of, and the past employees too that have left us, like everyone had their unique way of taking care in this really beautiful way. And I think that is, again, that thing that we kind of put out there, whether it was clear or not, in whatever our intention was, we brought in people who have like so much to contribute, which honestly I think is probably most people in the world. It's just that you have to like have the right environment to bring it out of them, for them to feel safe to like show up too, so that they're not like behind their guarded wall. Like, I don't know if because like showing up is also very vulnerable. So,
it's so true. It's how we speak about directing. You know, when Matt and I talk about like what it is to be a great director, I always feel like the director is the person creating an environment for other people to do their thing. And if you don't create that safety and that kind of that held space, people can't do their best work, you know. So
oh my God, no. On a set, when the director is like not taking care and is being selfish or like really erratic or like breaking trust, it's like Real Housewives. Like it gets really fast.
It really does.
Everyone's talking shit, and it's like, oh my God,
terrible.
What's happening to this project? You know, I've been on a couple of those sets where I was like, it's just so clear when somebody is not ready to like hold the space, or their intention is not clear, and everybody feels it and gets resentful real quick.
Oh my God, real quick. It is a highway to resentment, and you are in the fast fucking lane.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So just to sort of do a closing question, I guess I'm interested, because you're so practiced at this, and you have such a, you know, your life is such a testament to living the creative existence. I'm wondering if there are folks listening, and if you have any words for people who are interested in living more this way, like living more creatively, if there's any tips or tricks or ideas you could offer.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. What would John say? No, kidding.
I think a huge part is just like trust yourself, number one. Like trust what comes to you naturally. Trust what comes from your dreams, like your sleeping dreams, like whatever is coming that you're not putting a lot of effort behind. And I think also like being kind to yourself is so important to nurturing your creativity. And like, I know, because I have to work on it all the time. I think it's like, I'm like coming back to love always, but like, it's really about like the self-love and the respect of like what you are offering, and not questioning it or beating it down or saying I have no right or whatever that is. Like letting it be seen is going to be, I think, the first step in building your like confidence to be a more creative person. And like you said, I think believing in the infinity of creativity, in the same way that like if you believe power is infinite, it is. We all can like share in it. And so I think a lot of people think of their creativity as being in a marketplace only, and it's like nobody even has to see it, but as long as you're doing it, then and it's existing and you are like witnessing it, then that's like the first part that matters. So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Which is really tough as like someone who had to like was sort of sharing their work in a social media space. I really hated it because I felt like it was really limiting, and I was like, I don't even want to show anyone. It's just for me. But I don't know. You have to just kind of like trust and not worry so much about like value all the time, or marketability, or who's gonna like it, or all of those questions. Just to be confident in what's just coming to you naturally, I guess, would be my first place to go.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And
I immediately thought about time, like, which I think is connected to making sure that like the effort is like that, like the effort is worthwhile in some way. Like if I'm going to spend all day long working on this drawing, like it better be good, because then I've like lost the day, like, you know, and I should have done. that's, I think as a creative person, I can fall into that trap. And so instead of attempting, I just will do something else. And I feel like stoking the fire by not allowing time to be a bully to me and slowing down. So like if I'm going to go on a walk, let it be a walk with no music, no podcasts, no nothing. I can just kind of be an observer of my environment. Things just start to bubble because at last there's some like peace and waters have stilled. And so all the stuff that's a little bit deeper, like has a chance to kind of come to the surface. Yeah. And then, you know, it takes some trust and confidence and self-love to identify like what has risen. And if you want to like throw it a little attention, you know? So I think that, that's my biggest tip. Like there's no creative endeavor that doesn't serve something somehow, you know? Sure. And failing and like doing a really bad job. Like I love making handmade cards. And I'll have days where I'll sit down and I like will want to whip out like a batch of 10 of them so that I have them around. And I'll have days where like they're all bad. like for the life of me, I can't like make them look good or do whatever, but at least like my hand got to like work it out, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like usually for me, that's just a sign that like I'm a bit out of groove and I need to like, you know, nurture it a little bit more to provide it.
That's beautiful.
Or if I'm on a time crunch, then it really is bad. So
slow down, slowing down.
Yeah. And remembering like playfulness is so important. Like every year that I feel like I get older, I like, there's a part of me that's like, that diminishes how much playtime is essential to like living a full and wholehearted life, you know? And I mean, that's like mistake number one is not to have time to just go like sit on the ground with my dog and look at the sun or something.
Experiment. Yeah. The other thing I would say too, that I think is really important that I've struggled with a lot because I think we live in this world of like, what's your brand is like with your creativity, it can look different day to day and it doesn't have to be cohesive. And the way that you were drawing last year doesn't have to look like the way that you're drawing this year or your writing changes. Like I have dabbled in everything and always felt a little insecure about the fact that like, you know, I felt my work maybe wasn't recognizable, but the irony is that everyone on the outside says the opposite where they're like, oh no, I know your work immediately. And I think when you're really close to your work, it can feel like you can't get this like full grasp and like you can't wrap your mind around it. And it's like, why has my goal been to understand and wrap my mind around like who I am as an artist? Shouldn't it be more about like just kind of what's flowing at the moment and what's important in the moment? And that very like Western like need to like box it up and put a pretty bow for somebody else is really hard. That voice is really hard to turn off. So I would say like, just don't be so tied to your like brand identity. If what you're doing is just like creating something that, you know, if you're trying to run a business, sure, that matters sometimes. But when you're just like singing or sculpting or dancing or acting or whatever, like for yourself, it does not fucking matter.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
So,
I love that you said that.
I'm telling myself every day.
Yeah, it's true. And it is. It just gives permission, so much more permission to the inner child, I think, to kind of come out and fully express. And you're right. If it's coming from you, it's yours. So it is you, you know, by the very nature of that.
No one else is like, this isn't like you. They're like, oh, something new, interesting. You know, it's like, in this totally different light. So exactly. I mean, it's just a lot of it's just about like letting go always.
Well, that is a lot of delicious, juicy information. I think it's there's a lot of teachables for sure throughout this episode. And Yeah, I can't thank you both enough for coming on
Thank you.
for sharing your deliciousness with us and your magic and your joy. And how can people find you online? You're both on Instagram, right? And Bungkus is on Instagram.
Bungkus is on Instagram. It's BUNGKUSBAGUSLA. But it sounds like Bungkus Bagus LA. Just to be real.
I'm
That's
so
all
glad.
say.
I was going to let you, all three of you, pronounce it and not me, because
Yeah.
I can't say words. So this was nice.
They had
So
a
that's
regular.
great.
They had a regular who was coming, who was calling it Bilbo Baggins because they had no idea how
yeah,
to pronounce the
yeah.
name of the company, and I was like, "That is absolutely genius."
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, so that's wonderful. So everyone can find you on Instagram and obviously at Smorgasburg, LA, downtown.
Yeah.
If you haven't been down and you live in Los Angeles, I cannot recommend this enough. Go and taste this food.
And we still do the driveway pop-ups here and there because we love it so
fantastic.
much. So our website, which is bunkusbagusla.com, has a newsletter subscription form. And so if you drop your email in, we'll only hit you up when we have the pop-up planned.
Fantastic. And if people want to
Cool.
get a jar of that delicious sambal, can they order it through the website too?
Yeah, you can contact us through there and then we ship it to you. And then you have some
Yay.
of the heat in your house.
Then you got heat direct from
Yeah.
Glendale. Yay. Oh, well, thank you both so much. I sure do love you, and I can't tell you how wonderful this has been for both of us. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you both very
Bye.
much.
Love you, Matt.
We love you.
Matt, but